Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to this free webinar on the 5 most common mistakes new officers make. And it can be said that a lot of officers, whether they're new or not, without the proper training and mentoring, make these mistakes. Appreciate you dropping in on a Friday afternoon for a quick free webinar. My name is Jason Hoevelmann. I'm a co-owner and lead instructor with EngineHouseTraining.com. I'm also the creator and founder of the newfireofficer.com and Facebook page. And I'm a career battalion chief with the Florissant Valley Fire Protection District in North St. Louis County. And I'm a volunteer deputy chief with the Sullivan Fire Protection District, about an hour outside of St. Louis. I've been a career firefighter for over 20 years, a volunteer for over 30. And we're going to talk about 5 real basic concepts and ideas today. And I think you'll all recognize these things, but it's something to keep in the back of your head. Write it down, share it with your officers, because these are things that sound really simple, but they really wreak havoc for officers of all ranks. Hoping to keep this pretty short. We'll go about 30 minutes or so, maybe a little less. Get you back to your weekend and enjoying the last day of the week. So the first thing that we see new officers and a lot of officers make is don't try to change the world. And basically what we're talking about here is it's real easy to come into a new position, especially as an officer, whether you're volunteer, combination, or paid, and to see what things you want to do. You've got all these ideas and you've taken these classes and you've done all this training and you've read these books and articles and blogs, and it's easy to come into a situation and kind of try too hard. Or the other problem with this is your changes are pushing the organization past what they're ready for. And as a young fire chief over 20 years ago, I experienced this personally, that sometimes you have to go at the pace of the organization or just barely push ahead. You can't always be way out ahead because you're going to leave people behind. They're going to get frustrated. They're going to be very unhappy, and they're not going to be responsive to the quality changes that you're trying to implement. The other part of this is it's very difficult to make broad, wide sweeping changes all at once. It's more important to come in and make real small, significant changes in a timely fashion. And you kind of have to be aware of what your organization is about, what kind of situation they're in, and push those changes as appropriate. You have to be a little adaptable and flexible. Your ideas may have to be reined in just a little bit in order to meet the needs of the group and your organization. It can't be just an all-out, here's all these things we're going to do different. The other part of that is whatever company officer or chief officer you're replacing, it's not always a real good idea to come in and start changing everything, especially if your crew liked the former officer, because what you're essentially saying is that everything that crew and that officer has been doing is wrong. And it's not a good way to start with a new crew or a new department or new shift. So don't come in and try to change the world. And of course, right now and for several years now, the big buzzword has been, we're going to change culture. And it's easy to say that, but it's much harder to do. I would warn you against any attempts to come in and change the culture of a shift, to change the culture of a crew, and definitely to change the culture of a department. If you're wanting to change culture, you have to do it in very small increments, and it starts with changing individual behaviors. So don't rush in trying to change the culture of any one of those aspects of your department without first looking at what individual behaviors need to be changed and change those one at a time. Then, in effect, you will change the culture, but it takes a long time to do. So don't come in guns a-blazing. It's my way or the highway. Don't try to change the world. Number 2, don't come in with this authority complex. Hey, look at me. I'm a new officer. Hey, look what I did. It's about time I got promoted. Those types of attitudes. You should come in kind of like a lamb, not so much like a lion. If you have to push your authority onto others, you probably shouldn't have been promoted. And you can take it for what it's worth, but the best officers, the best leaders come in and they pick up where the others left off. They understand the job description. They understand the objectives. They create goals and objectives for their crew and their shift, and they discuss those things. And it's not a situation where they have to come in, flash the badge, flash the new color helmet, whatever signifies a change in rank. Those things don't have to be expressed other than in the fact that you're doing your job and you're setting expectations for your crew and your shift. I just put a Facebook post up, and basically, in essence, what it said was, as you promote up, the further you promote up, the more people you serve. And what that means is some people that struggle with this authority complex, they get it backwards. And what they do is they think because they've been promoted, because now they have rank and title and formal authority, now they get to put it in everybody's face, and everybody should be taking care of them and doing this and doing that. When in reality, instead of other people serving you or working for you, the higher up that you promote, the more people you have to serve and the more people that you work for. Your job is to make sure that the people that you work with that are not your rank, you give them everything they need to succeed and to meet and achieve the goals of the department and the crew. We see this a lot with new captains and new company officers and new chief officers. I've seen really good company officers get promoted really out of their ability. And this happens a lot. And you'll see when people get this complex, a lot of instances, it's because they've promoted out of their ability, out of their comfort zone. They're not really ready for that job. It happens a lot from company officer to battalion chief. These people don't know how to make that transition. That's a huge transition from company officer to battalion chief in a lot of organizations, because you're going from task level and company level, skills and tactics to a strategic level, a planning level where you're not as hands-on. And to make up for that, they get real bossy, they get real particular, things they never would have done as a company officer, now they do as a battalion chief, and it really kills their credibility and their ability to continue to lead. And I've seen really good company officers personally that I've worked for that as soon as they get promoted, they become a white glove chief. And what I mean by that is they run around the engine house and they use the white glove to see if there's dust. They use the white glove on the truck. Do you have too many pillows on your bunk? All those kinds of things that are really insignificant that they never would have paid any attention to as a captain. But they've got to show their authority because they're out of their comfort zone. They got promoted out of their abilities in all reality. So they've got to look for all these small, insignificant things. So try to stay away from this authority complex, this, hey, look at me, I got promoted type situation, because you'll lose trust, you lose credibility, you lose respect. And when that happens, you lose your ability to lead. Micromanaging kills. Nothing will ruin your ability to have relationships and to build trust and credibility as a fire officer by micromanaging your crew. A key component of any officer or any leader is the ability to delegate appropriately, to offer responsibility to those that can handle it, and to allow your crews to work. It doesn't mean that they're going to do it the way you do it or the way that you did it or the way that you think it should be done. The bottom line is, if we're going to be effective leaders and officers, we have to have the ability to delegate effectively. It's good for morale. It's good to mentor and coach up-and-coming leaders and future officers. And it's good for us because it relieves tasks that we were used to doing on our own in whatever position we did before, to accept new responsibilities that we have to take care of. A good example of this is, it's hard to come from task level operations as a firefighter or even as a company officer back to that battalion chief. Or maybe you were a training officer and you built a program over years and years and you did all you could to make it work. And now all of a sudden you're in a different position. And it's hard when you pass those jobs and functions up that you really are passionate about. It's hard to let go of those sometimes, but we have to allow ourselves to stand back, let others succeed and fail, a key component of delegation and not micromanaging is, yes, sometimes our crew members are going to fail, and we have to allow them to do so when it's appropriate. Now, on the fire ground and in certain drill situations, just because of safety measures, we can't allow that. But during day-to-day operations and even with some projects and tasks, we have to set boundaries that they have to operate within, but we shouldn't be breathing down their neck. Just because we think we should do it better or we could do it better doesn't mean that we should. The best way for our future captains and our future officers to improve is by learning from failure. How many of us coming up through the fire service have learned from failure? If you haven't raised your hand, you're not doing something right. We all mess up. We all stumble. We all run into situations that we're not real sure how we want to operate. And there's nothing worse than a captain or a battalion chief or any officer for that matter that doesn't have the facilities and the ability to say, hey, you guys do a really good job. Here's what I need you to do. Here's the boundaries within you need to operate. Here's when this needs to be completed. And I will check in with you every couple of weeks. And I'll do a free webinar coming up on the 5, and there's actually 6 components of successful delegation for the company officer, and we'll go over that in a different webinar. But the bottom line is, part of being an officer and an effective leader, a huge part of that comes with building relationships and trust with your crew members. And part of that relationship is that you trust them to do the job after providing resources, after providing training, after providing knowledge and education and mentoring and coaching, that you trust those crew members because they're a direct extension of you. I had a captain one time complain about his backstepper because he couldn't pull a pre-connected hand line. And the problem wasn't the backstep firefighter. The problem was the officer who didn't work enough with them to make sure they were proficient. And instead of jumping off the truck complaining about it, hey, it's time to practice that skill, right? So, but at the same time, when you practice that skill, if all the company officer does is demonstrate it over and over and over and not let the firefighter pull it over and over, they're not going to learn. We have to allow our firefighters, our company officers, our future leaders, our future officers to get hands-on, physically touch the stuff, take responsibility, and allow them to succeed with those things or fail. But if you're going to allow them to fail, we're not going to micromanage. Make sure you've always got a plan B. You've got a backup plan, because sometimes they're going to step up. They're not going to take it seriously, or they're going to think they have more time to do it, or they're not going to think it's as hard as it was, whatever those things are. But if you want to kill trust and you want to kill relationships really quick, micromanage your people to death, and you'll kill yourself as a credible leader. Don't quit. It's not the finish line. And what I mean by that is, when we are young firefighters who become eligible for promotion at whatever rank that might be, we really apply ourselves, at least most do. Some people cram, which is a whole other topic, but most of us apply ourselves. We read, we take classes, we train, we take on responsibilities at our fire departments, we take on extra tasks, we ask for advice. We do a lot of things, hopefully over a long period of time, to build a consistent body of work that's conducive to us being a attractive and quality candidate for promotion. And along with that comes a lot of energy and a lot of work, a lot of sacrificed time, in some cases away from home when we're taking classes, or weekends when we're taking classes and going to conferences to learn our craft. We're reading articles, and instead of the novels that we like, we are staying up late after trainings and other operations and tasks to learn more about that particular subject. We put a lot of time and effort into those things, and I've seen in many instances that as soon as the person gets promoted, they quit. They think they've achieved what their end goal was, and the end goal is never the promotion. Right? That's just a part of what that means, because once you're promoted, it starts all over, right? your responsibilities are a little bit different. Your perspective has to be a little bit different. You now are the authority, not only in handing out tasks and assignments, but also when things go wrong. We recently, the last couple of years, our union signed a collective bargaining agreement that changed some of the qualifications for acting captain. They're riding out a rank when the captains are off. And some of the people are fairly new in regards to how long they've been on the department. Some don't have a lot of experience on a fire truck. They've got some, but we, as battalion chiefs, have the ability to sign those individuals off as being ready to ride the seat or as not being ready to ride the seat. And the first time you tell somebody they're not quite ready, of course, they're upset. But the bottom line is this: when you're the company officer or a battalion chief, there are certain things, especially as a captain on the fire ground or on the drill ground when the battalion chief's not around, that you have to be responsible for. And if you quit after the promotion, you're not going to be prepared for those questions and those crises that are going to pop up when you least expect it. Murphy's head is going to rear itself, and we've got to be ready for that. If we quit after the promotion, we're not going to have the knowledge, the mastery that we need to have. We're not going to have the problem-solving abilities. We're not going to know where to find resources. We're going to get stagnant. We're going to get lazy and complacent, and it filters down to your crew. A lot of fire officers, they get that promotion. They've read to classes after class after class, and they get the promotion and think they've crossed the finish line. They've broke the tape in the race, and now they sit back and cruise. You should be working harder at getting better and staying better as an officer than you did as a firefighter, because maybe you mastered all the things that you need to master as a firefighter, which is highly unlikely. But in your mind, you've put every ounce that you could into being the best firefighter you could be. Now you have to do the same thing as a company officer. That means still maintaining those basic fundamental skills and adding all of the things that you need to do to be the best fire officer you can be. And that means classes, reading books, reading articles, conferences, asking for advice, all the things you did as a firefighter trying to get promoted, you need to do as a fire officer to be the person that others can come to and ask for that same information. So just because you get promoted, just because you've achieved what you've gotten to achieve, now it's time to set new goals, new objectives, and don't consider it the finish line. Finally, don't avoid discipline, and buddies are the toughest. Probably the biggest pitfall to being an effective officer. We train, we get our crew ready, we delegate appropriately, we have good leadership skills, we have a lot of trust and strong relationships within the crew. But when it comes to discipline, this is where a lot of people step up and they fall down because, let's face it, most of us know the people we work with. We've known them for a long time, and it's never easy to hand out discipline. And the first time you tell somebody no, you're going to get a quizzical look and wonder why you told them that. You've been working with them. Then you get the whole thing, well, you forgot where you came from. And you don't forget where you come from. But again, you have different responsibilities, like we said just in that last slide. You have different perspectives because now you're responsible. That means you have to be accountable. That means that when people screw up, you have to hold them accountable. And if you don't, you're going to become a pushover. You're going to become easy, and you're not going to have the respect. Yeah, they may like you. They may think you're really cool to hang out with, but you're not going to have the respect or the admiration of those that really know what's going on. You have to tell people no. You have to hand out discipline. We had a new fire chief a couple of years ago, and one of the first things he's told us as officers was, hey, don't be afraid to use discipline to change behavior. It's fine to have a conversation, and most of the time that works. I would say once you set your expectations and you lay out what you expect of all of your officers, it's pretty easy to fix and change those behaviors. But some people need a little extra motivation to not do the same things over and over again. And it may be something they've gotten away with for years because past officers won't do it. Don't buy into the whole thing, well, that's been precedent. That's a bunch of BS. If it's wrong, it's wrong. If it's right, it's right. And as the officer, you have to make sure you correct it and mitigate it. And it's going to be one of the hardest things you ever do in your career as a fire officer. And one of the most unpleasant things that you have to do is give and hand out disciplinary actions, especially to people that are friends of yours. And could it change relationships? It might. I'm not going to lie to you and tell you that don't take it personally, because you will take it personally and so will they. But you can't act on those personal emotions. You have to act on what your expectations are from your superior officers, what the missions and objectives and goals are of your organization, and the flat out what's right, what is fair to everybody, what's fair to the rest of the crew, what's fair to the people that do it right every single day. And if you let people slide on a regular basis, eventually everybody's going to want that same consideration when they screw up. And then you've got anarchy in your department or on your career shift, and it makes it even that much harder. So as soon as you get promoted, just make it clear. You have to state that, hey, listen, I know people have gotten away with this in the past, but we're not doing that any longer. And, I'll be fair and reasonable, but and most of the time when they screw up, they expect it. We had a guy at work that forgot he was working a trade day and he didn't show up. He knew exactly what was coming to him. He knew it wasn't a big deal. But if we let him get away with it, then the next guy, don't be afraid and don't avoid discipline, especially with people that are friends. All right. That's the quickest way to get yourself in a lot of trouble. Now, I'm not saying you are quick to hand out hard discipline. I'm just saying that, when it's appropriate, use it. When it's not, don't. But just don't avoid it, and don't let things slide, because it's a real slippery slope. So I've got an upcoming company officer development course. And for anybody that watches this video and registers after today, can get 10% off the company officer 5-week online class starting April 4th. And 10% off the battalion chief's officer class, 6 weeks online, that starts May 2nd. You have to register after today, okay? And the easiest way to do that is to email me, thenewfireofficer@gmail.com, use this password, and I'll send you a link, and we'll get you 10% off. It's got to be for people who've watched the video, and I know who's watched the video, even the pre-recorded ones. And this is recorded. You can watch it again and use that. And you've got to register after today. All right. We've only got a week, little over a week for the company officer one, a little over a month for the battalion chief one. They've been really popular. We do a lot of things that the fire officer 1 and 2 certifications don't do. And the feedback's been fantastic. I've had entire departments send all of their company officers and battalion chiefs through it. And I've had really good feedback from it. So the company officer 5-week boot camp class is $150, and the battalion chief 6-week class is $225. So do that. Also, I'm going to open this up here. If you have questions, I'm going to come over here and see if you've got any questions for this. I know it was a pretty quick, but I don't want to keep you on a nice Friday afternoon. And it's pretty self-explanatory. This video will get posted on the website. So if you want to use it again, it'll be available. Also, if you're going to FDIC, be sure you check out Engine House Training's hot class, the firefighter bailout. And if you're going to the classroom sessions, check out my 10 commandments for the fire company officer off the fire ground. And that's for FDI 2016, because this video I'm sure will be around longer than that. So thanks for tuning in. We'll start having more of these real quick, short, free webinars. And if there's no questions, we're going to close it out. And look for it on firefightersenemy.com, enginehousetraining.com, and thenewfireofficer.com for replays. Take care. Have a great weekend. Appreciate you stopping in.